doing? Oh, yep, we're live.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're going to do it. We're going to dig into something not a lot of people want to put their eyes on. Not a lot of people even want to touch it because of the name that's attached. But these two lovely guests of mine, Dr. Silkman and Christy Lynn, both from the Foul Play YouTube channel and Discord, which, by the way, please join. You will not regret it. Believe me, there's a wonderful bunch of people there. So, I don't even know where to start because how about if we just say hi to the folks? Dr. Stuckman, you want to say hello? Christy, you want to say hi?
Hey. And thank you, Linda, for inviting me and Christy.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to have you. I'm very honored, honestly. I just love it. You guys are really, you're fantastic. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm gonna hope that the audience will join in with some questions, and we'll try to answer them. I've asked my mods if they can just please put it at Linda K, and then I will see them, and I'll try to get back to them. I got old eagle-eyed Christy here, so she don't miss none. So
I'm gonna
yeah, so she'll be on the ball too. But Dr. Silkman did a very nice, I don't know, preview to this book for me. It is wonderful. It is really wonderful. Would you like to just start off what you thought of it when you first started reading it? I mean, I'm reading the Amazon.com things on it, and your little note here that says you didn't think that the publishers needed to worry about this.
Yeah. Do you want me to start off?
Oh yeah, go right ahead. Just start going.
Well, both Christy and I have read the book several times now, and I can assure you that we've been to our therapist and we've consulted a priest, and I noticed that Christy's got a cross in the background. That's the ward off. That's the ward off any evil spirits.
We burn sage.
Yeah.
Hey. Off evil
That's
spirits
beautiful.
here, yes.
Well, the book, the book is actually called Avery, The Case Against Stephen Avery and What Making a Murderer Gets Wrong. And Christy was kind enough to lend me a copy, which I read several times now. And this is the updated edition, isn't it, Christy?
Yes, it is the edition that has the 2 additional chapters he added. The 2 wonderful chapters.
Yes. And this is written, of course, by Ken Kratz, but also by another guy called Peter Wilkinson. So we can't only blame one person for this. It's actually Peter Wilkinson as well. This is the ebook that was published in, I think, October 2019. Yeah, so we both set about reading it. And the reason for doing that is to really get a perspective from the prosecutor, Ken Kratz, to really get his ideas and get into the mind of Ken Kratz.
That's a dangerous place.
It's a dangerous place.
That is,
yes.
I think I'll just, like I said, appreciate that you've done this because I couldn't do it. And also I can't get my camera straight. There we go. And that you were able to, because I hear it's really pretty bad, grammar, his use of words. Doesn't sound so intelligent, shall we say, in his writings.
Christy, you want to make some comments?
I do. If I'm correcting your grammar, you have horrible grammar. If I'm correcting your punctuation, we have a problem because I do not give a shit about punctuation. I do not care. English was the first class I failed. I do not care about cause and effect and proper sentences. I just don't care. I was always a math whiz. I didn't care about that class. And if I'm picking out your errors, we have a problem. We have a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Christy and Linda. I mean, the first time I read it, I couldn't believe what I was reading in terms of this must have been written by a 5-year-old.
I remember all the notes you were sending me.
Yeah, it was not, in my opinion, not professionally written. It's sort of like a lot of random thoughts just put down on a paper. And I really wasn't too impressed. I mean, look, to be fair, there's some good chapters in the book which I found very interesting, but really the purpose of me reading the book, and maybe Christy will back me up on this, was we really needed to get into the mind of Ken Kratz, right?
Mhm.
He's the prosecutor. He successfully prosecuted both Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey. Hey, millions of people have seen MAM 1 and MAM 2. It was good to get a perspective from the prosecutor himself.
Mhm.
I've now read the book probably 4 times, and oh
Wow.
my God.
I only
Yeah.
asked for you to do it once.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like,
Oh, Christy's read it
oh,
5
Christy.
times.
But
Yeah.
can we also add here that Christy has the benefit
I was
of
gonna say,
reading the book first before
Yes.
she even dug into the case. So I kind of want to touch on that before we really get into the book. I mean, now that you've read the book, Christy, what do you think? I mean, you can sum it up, or you can just, just let us know what you think about
well,
what you've seen and then what you've read, how the difference is.
I watched Making a Murder and I couldn't believe it. And I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to think, whether he was guilty, whether he was innocent. I was on the fence. I really didn't know.
Right.
I'm a book reader. I went to the books. I was about to take a trip and I needed a book to read. I found the prosecutor's book. What better book to read than the prosecutor's book?
We
Let's
think you did something.
because I thought the
Yeah.
documentary could be biased. I had just watched The Staircase, and The Staircase was absolutely defense
Um,
biased. Michael
yeah.
Peterson paid for that. But anyway, I didn't know what to think. So I read the prosecutor's book. And by the time I was done, you would think after reading the prosecutor's book, you should have some answers.
Yeah.
I had more friggin' questions than ever before.
Wow.
I read Jerry Buting's book, and then I was extremely confused and had no idea what to think. And I went to Facebook and I joined every Facebook group I could. I learned a lot about this case. I don't think I slept for 6 months.
Oh, I feel you. The first 6 months for me were the same. And how about, I mean, does he get to you worse for writing the book
Well,
and thinking he got away with it?
with that, yeah. What? He's a narcissist. These pages drip with his jealousy and his hatred of Stephen. You'll
Yeah.
hear that. Dr. Silkman is definitely going to cover that tonight.
Yeah.
You can feel it. I mean, I read this book to about 25 people last week, and they finally understood what I had been saying about it just seething and it just dripping with guilt, every word, or hatred for him, rather.
Yeah.
When I went back and read it the second time, I just recently read it for the second time. I had a flight to Denver and I read it on the way to Denver. That's how short the book is. I read it on a single flight from Atlanta, Georgia to Denver, Colorado, 3.5 hours. And all I could do was laugh because I had forgotten how many things he had written. And after knowing the things I know now, all the lies in this book and all the bullshit in this book, and he repeats himself so many times and it's so full of fluff, and he could have literally
Full of fluff.
his
Sorry.
book.
That's putting it kindly.
His book is 234 pages. And if you take out the fluff and the filler and the unnecessary bullshit, he could have done this in 25 pages.
How about two? The introduction, the titles, and the end.
He could have done it. 2 to 25.
I don't know. Sorry. Reading puts me to sleep, and I can't imagine being tired and sick at the same time. So, I mean, because Kratz just is, like you said, a narcissist, really bad.
He
So,
really
Yes, he is.
right, exactly. Okay, so you want to dig in on the book?
Yeah. I just
Or
wanted
if you
to
have
echo.
something to add, go right ahead.
Well, I just wanted to echo what Christy said. I sort of did it in reverse. I watched the MAM series first, and I was completely flabbergasted. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I thought it was a docudrama whereby they got actors. They got actors to play the roles. I thought, no way, this can't be real.
I
But
thought
yet-
the same thing.
But yet, I learned that there was a camera crew, directors, that were filming it as it was happening.
Mhm.
And my jaw hit the ground. I just couldn't believe it. The next thing I did, I joined watched a lot of YouTube, different channels. I joined Rubber Ducky's group. I learned a lot of
Oh,
information.
what did you say on my channel?
Huh?
Am I kidding you?
No. I looked at a lot of different channels. But
I look at every one of them. They're all good.
yes,
They all
yes.
have their merit. Let's just
But
say that. I was joking.
Yeah, the most important thing I did, I went back to the original documents. I went to the court documents, and I wanted to read them myself. I looked at all the forensic evidence, and I could not believe what I was reading. So then I got to read the book, and I also read about 3/4 of the way Jerome Buting's book, complete contrast to Ken Kratz's book. But I'm so thankful that Christy gave me the book to read. I finished my therapy sessions and I'm all good to go. But I'm so glad I read Ken Kratz's book. It was very important. But if I could just add, Linda, the thing that took me by surprise, and you can now see the theme throughout the entire book. I want to talk about the front picture.
Okay.
Right? So if people actually go to the Amazon.com, they can see the front cover of the book. And it's remarkable how Ken Kratz decided to use a picture of Stephen Avery where he honestly looks like Hannibal Lecter.
He does.
Right?
He does. He looks
He's
like the
got
worst criminal
short hair.
ever.
He looks disheveled. He's got actually cuffs, and he's got like mittens around his hands, because he's such a dangerous person that he's going to, jump out at the reader and kill you.
Right. Let's not forget
Yeah.
the shackles and the arms,
Yeah.
Don't forget. We learn in the phone calls. Stephen has a phone call with Stacy. We learn that outfit was brought to him special that day, brand new, just for Stephen Avery and his court appearance.
Yes.
Isn't that lovely? Paint him out to be, like you said, the worst. What did the judge say? You have to be the worst criminal that's ever come across my whatever.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, to me, that sets the tone of the book, because the way Ken Kratz decided to do it, he wanted to make Stephen as the most dangerous and desperate criminal in Wisconsin. Right? So
exactly.
you look at that front cover and you go, oh my God, do I want to live next to a person like that? And of course, it's all part of the show that Ken Kratz created. I summarize the book very simple: good versus evil. If you distill it right down to its basic, it's good. You've got Teresa Horbach, a beautiful 25-year-old person, full of love, full of vigor, full of dynamics, and you've got this evil sexual predator spider out to kill the innocent. And that's the way and Christy will back me up, that's the way the theme is throughout the entire book.
I believe it. I really do. The guy is just one. I don't know. I don't even really have words for him anymore. He is just so evil in the heart, and his words are nothing worth of value. So that's why I thought this pamphlet would be interesting to go over.
Well, if I could just say here, look, before I even read the book, I had a look at Amazon.com, right? Because normally what happens is when people review a book, they're fairly honest, right? And what I did, out of random, I just picked 5 comments, and hopefully the listeners can see the distribution of comments. Now, these are from verified customers, right? Which means
I could
you
share
have
my
to buy.
screen. Well, no, go ahead. You read it.
It means you have to buy the book, right? You can't just go on, log in, and type these comments. You have to be a verified customer. Now, 75% of people who bought the book gave it 1 star. That's the lowest you can get, right? Now, if you're a publisher of this book, that's a disaster,
Of
right?
course.
Right? If you get 75% of your audience saying, hey, this book is worth 1 star or below, because you can't give 0 stars,
You
that's not
can't.
that's not good. And so some of the I picked 5 comments at random. The comments were, this guy is a creepy sexual predator. Now, this is from a person who read the book, right? Now,
Yeah, I love the comments. I'm telling you, I'm reading them. I'm just like, I'm awed by them. They're
the other
very
one,
telling. Go
yeah,
ahead.
the others were, don't bother. This is a joke and not even a funny one.
Mhm.
So this book is supposed to set the record straight.
I like the
Don't
last
waste
one.
time or money. And finally,
Yeah.
dishonest is one thing, poor writing is another.
There you
Hey,
go.
Christy will
Two
back me
strikes.
up. That's a shocker.
Yeah, that's the most accurate one. Dishonest is one thing, poor writing is another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're giving yourself 2 strikes there. It's too bad you couldn't give 2 thumbs down. It would make it a little
Yeah.
easier. The options are too high for the Amazon people to comment on.
I am one of those reviews, by the way. I am
Oh, fantastic.
those 1-star reviews. I
Fantastic.
am.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, his reviews are not good at all. And you know, only 18% at 5. That what kind? I mean, is a publisher gonna? Why did they take on the extra 2
Oh wait,
chapters?
hold on. I'm gonna spoil it a little bit. He's disappointed in the book writing experience. It didn't go quite as he thought it was gonna go. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, we'll get to
We'll
that
talk
then.
about that later, but
Okay.
disappointment for him.
Okay.
Yes.
He's
And
fine.
yeah. And as you said, Linda, 18% gave a 5-star review. But, you know, I put the snide remark. I wonder how many people from the MTSO family and friends.
Or I think it's his wife and maybe a distant cousin, and
Richard Donovan.
he might be. And Joe, well, we can't forget Nancy Grace. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about Nancy
Biggest
Grace.
fan.
Grace in just a second.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Okay.
yeah, and to be fair, 18% gave it a 5-star review, and the comments were fascinating. This book sets the record straight. No doubt he did it. Good and wow. And notice how
Well,
in-depth those reviews were.
Yeah. Well, you could take wow as wow, I can't believe you did this, or
Yes.
wow, you certainly are wrong. I can't take it any
Yes.
other way.
And if I wrote a book and I got 75% giving me 1 star, oh boy, I would.
Yeah,
run
that's
out.
not good.
No,
It is not good.
It's not good.
But it really didn't deteriorate him from pushing his book, and he pushed his book and he's pushed his book, and so we're gonna see about what he's all about here. Nancy
Yeah.
Grace, let's get her over with since she's next.
Christy, you want to make any comments about our good friend Nancy Grace?
It's
Yes.
Nancy Disgrace, by the way.
Nancy
Yes,
Disgrace.
I'm just going to say that. Well, the other night when I brought her up, JJack61 from Discord said, nasty disgrace. And I had to
Yes.
write that down because that was great. That is her
Yep.
new. That is her new nasty disgrace. Yes.
I totally agree.
I'm not even sure what she's doing in this book. She brought nothing. It was a wasted. According to the book, it takes 6 minutes to read that forward, and it was a waste of 6 minutes that I'll never get back, times the 5 times I've read it. She claims that Stephen tended to the fire all through the night. She claims that she reviewed Brendan's interrogation, and she thinks it's legit.
Yeah.
Whatever. And she makes a quote about this not being a popularity contest. Then why are you the forward of the book? And why do you have a show? And why do you shout bullshit from the rooftops every time you open your mouth? Not a popularity contest, though.
Oh, you hush up over there. I got my dog trying to put her 2 words in, but look at what Crockett Thompson says. Is it true they hand Kratz book out to convicts to read as extra punishment? Well, you know what? I think we should suggest that. We should go to the Department of Corrections and ask them to do this.
Oh, Lord, no. I think those poor prisoners will ask for another 5 years on top of their sentences just not to read the book.
Yeah,
That's an excellent question.
I don't know who DJack73 is, but he says, is there any way for us to see the number of book sales total? How many he sold?
I tried to find that information. I couldn't find it. I think there's over 400 reviews in total. I don't know if that represents the number of sales. That I don't know. But I would dare say I don't think it was a big seller, even as an ebook. An ebook is a casual, download. It'll take a couple of hours to read, but clearly, I don't think it was a winner. It really got more people upset and angry. The question I asked Christy was, why did he write this book in the first place? What's the point? Why do it?
I believe the book is in part an embedded confession of some type. He accused Stephen Avery of having embedded confessions in his phone calls. This book is an embedded confession. If you read through the bullshit, he drew us a map of everything they planted, when they planted it, how they planted it, and where they planted it.
Yes.
He drew it out for us.
Yes. And we'll get into that. And in a way, when he says, "Oh, do you think that XYZ did ABC?" I put my hands up. I'm sure Christy did. You say, yes, that's exactly how it happened, Mr. Kratz. But you see, he tried to make it, we'll get into it. He tried to make it so laconic. And, how could you possibly believe that law enforcement agents or anyone could possibly set up poor Stephen Avery? So he did it like, well, if you believe in that conspiracy, then you're a Fruit Loop, right? That's the way he approached it. But getting back to Nancy Grace, if I can for a second, you know what? She was perfect for the book because she's almost a female version of Ken Kratz when you think about it.
Oh my gosh, you hit it.
Right?
Nail on head. Oh, I honor you for doing that. She is Kratz. Yes, Dr. Silkman, you got that right.
Because
I'm sure the crowd is applauding you on this one.
Because if you look at her work, her body of work, she's controversial. She's angry. She's divisive. Hey, it's a marriage made in heaven. That's exactly what Ken Kratz is.
She's very hard-headed, doesn't want to, she's not open to anything other than her own thoughts. So yes, I agree. Kratz is much like that.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is that she actually interviewed Stephen Avery by phone on a show live. She interviewed Stephen Avery, and this was very early on in the piece. And it's amazing. Nancy Grace talks to her director on her lapel mic and said, he's lying. He's guilty. So from day one, even before any evidence is gathered, before any forensic work is done, Nancy Grace is telling people he's lying.
Yeah.
So she's already made up her mind. And it's
didn't she say something like Brendan was I believe that boy knows something. I believe he did. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So
yes.
She has no merit in my mind. She's kind of like in the O'Helly category for
God,
Linda.
Please don't mention that.
No, that is two worst people in life, as far as I'm concerned. They shouldn't be,
Yes.
But yes, I totally agree. I don't think she has any merit, and the only thing she probably did was, hey, maybe, I don't know, maybe Lyra's or whatever his child bride is probably pretty jealous.
Lord. And the amazing thing is, what does Nancy Grace say? She says, I quote, prosecutors didn't make him a murderer. He did that all on his own. The evidence says so, and that, I submit, is the truth. And what does Ken Kratz say? The same thing throughout his book.
Yeah. He's well, I don't think he could find much content. He's got to be like a guilter, you know what I mean? He kind of goes over and over and things,
Yes.
But yeah. So, okay, want to just dig right in here? And is there anything else you wanted to add about the reviews or anything? Anybody got a question they might want to know? Just make sure you like highlight my name, and we'll try to, between me and Christy, we'll get it going.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Fantastic.
Okay.
I'm trying.
All right. Okay. Would you like to start off with chapter 1, the true crime today? And just kind of like some of the things he says, mainly about, the documentary, Stephen,
Yeah.
whatever. Go right ahead.
Christy, you want to say a comment, or you want me to say something?
I'll let you do it. I'll let you do it first. You go first.
Well, to me, look, Ken Kratz sets the stage, right? He is going to attack the documentary. He's going to attack the directors, the editors who made Making a Murderer. He's got them firmly in their sight. And the reason why is because he believed that they were very biased, right? They took the stance of the defense team. So Ken Kratz is very, very pissed off. Are we allowed to use that language?
Fuck yeah, go right ahead.
He was steaming, right? And he makes the comment. Now, as soon as you read this, you know his position. He goes, and I quote, "Ma'am is filled with distortions and omissions, editorial choices that slanted the show for the defense perspective at almost every turn." So, in effect, what he's trying to say is, okay, you've got Ma'am. Ma'am is very friendly to the defense team. Now I'm going to state our perspective from the prosecution team. And that to me is why he wrote this book. He was trying to even up the playing field. And what's ridiculous, he even admitted, hey, the directors of Ma'am came to me and said, well, would you like interviews? Would you like to comment? Christy, what did he say?
You lost me.
Oh, sorry, Christy. Even though the directors went up to Ken Kratz and said, well, do you want to comment?
He said no.
He said no.
And then he bitched. He refused. He didn't want to go with them. He didn't want to
Correct.
He didn't want to sorry, I had to pick my screen back up.
Oh, no worries. No worries. So the directors at the end of each episode write down all the names of the people that didn't want to be interviewed. He's one of them.
Yes, he is.
Right?
Yes.
So what can the directors do? They asked him to be interviewed, but he refused to do it. So what can you possibly do? The other comment that I picked out, he goes, I think you'll agree, this is a quote, I think you'll agree that Stephen Avery earned his cell in Waupun Correctional Institution, where he'll sit until he dies.
That's a real bold statement.
Yeah. Now, Christy, I think you said it too. He's got it in for Stephen. He's got it in for his family.
He does.
Right?
He does. He absolutely does. He hates Stephen. He hates Stephen with every fiber of his being. Stephen is everything that he has, the fame, he has the popularity, and he has the support of the public, and that's something that Ken Kratz doesn't have.
Yes.
Ken Kratz love. What does he call us? 40 million. What does he say? 40 million of us were
cult. Yeah.
He would love for 40 million of us to be falling at his saying, you did such a great job. Congratulations.
Yes. he was rather shocked at how Making a Murderer took off and boomed. He wasn't happy about that at all. And he almost feels now that he's missed a lot of the action and adulation because it was slanted, according to him, to the defense. So now he's trying to get even by writing this book. And I think Christy will agree, oh boy, it backfired big time. Really backfired on him.
It did, because most people, if I had done research first, I probably would have never bought the book. I bought the book not knowing anything. There's a lot of people I have met that will not read this book because they didn't want to buy it. They didn't want him to get it. I stopped you from buying it. When I heard you were going to spend money on it, I was like, no. I can. No.
Thank you, Christy.
No, let's not let Ken Kratz get any more money.
Yes.
So half the people that bought it and read it hated it and gave it horrible reviews, and the rest of them won't even buy it. So
yeah, it's not good reviews.
It didn't turn out the way he wanted it to.
No, it really backfired. And
it's also our fault he doesn't have a law practice anymore. So now it's
yes, correct.
He thought we owed him.
Correct.
I'm sure he thought we.
Well, geez, I don't surprise. That doesn't surprise me, but because accountability is nothing that he has or even has thought of ever. So I guess we were forcing pills down his throat and giving him victims' numbers too and telling him what to write.
Correct.
You know.
Correct.
He passed that one off good to the state. They didn't believe him, so he lost his job.
That's right. And just my final quote from chapter 1. This is where he cleanses his soul. He washes his hands and he goes, "I didn't make anyone a murderer. I did my job and convicted one." So therefore, he's going, "Hey, it's my job. I did what I had to do."
Okay.
What are you guys complaining about?
Yeah, let's touch on that. What do you think about his job, and especially he's a prosecuting attorney, and do you not think that he went beyond seeking the truth?
Oh my Lord!
That Christy, is what he's supposed to do.
Christy, you better say something before I blow up my screen.
Feel free.
Okay, so I have followed a lot of cases, maybe none as closely as this one, but I have never in all my life seen a prosecutor act the way he did. I have never seen a prosecutor go to the lengths he went to. And after reading the book and watching Making a Murderer and watching the interviews he has given and reading his ridiculous tweets on Twitter and his stupid tirades that he goes on, all that together, plus everything he was doing in the background to the family that I've learned listening to the calls, everything he did. Yeah. He went above and beyond. If Stephen was really guilty, the man deserved a gold star. The man was not guilty. Ken Kratz should have never been able to try another case after this one. And I am glad he's no longer a lawyer. I am glad that people destroyed his practice on Yelp reviews. He does not deserve to represent anybody, because if he did this to Stephen, who else did he do this to? How many other people? Yeah. If this gets overturned, when it gets overturned, I hope it gets overturned. I hope that every single case he has ever had his fingers in gets shot. It's only right. It's only right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you. I totally agree, Christy. And one thing for sure is that he is supposed to be seeking the truth, and he did just the opposite. I agree. Would you like to speak on that too, Dr. Silverman?
Yeah. What surprised me, and I've spoken to Christy and the gang back at Foul Play about this, for some unknown reason, Ken Kratz took this so personal, he actually behaved like Teresa Halbach's father, right? Throughout the trial, whenever you saw the camera go on the parents, they were completely without any emotion at all. In a lot of cases, they were even chewing gum, right? No expression, blank stares, nothing, no interactions, nothing. Ken Kratz took it upon himself to behave like the father. And what's amazing was that Ken Kratz's demeanor changed. His voice got lower. he started talking like this. He started mentioning Teresa, and he started talking in a falsetto voice. I just wanted to grab the camera. I just wanted to grab my screen and smash it. So he became personally involved. This wasn't a job for him. This was a vendetta. It was a vendetta against Stephen, his family, and then later on, Brendan. He took
Yeah.
it way over the top. He took it personally. And that's to me, that's amazing because he did it twice. He did it during Stephen Avery's trial when they were talking about Teresa Halbach, and he did it again in Brendan Dassey's trial when they were talking about Teresa again. And it's sort of like he's pleading to the jury, please find him guilty. Put him behind bars where he belongs and will never see the sunlight again. I'm there to myself, what the hell? You know, I agree, Christy. He took it way over the top. And obviously it worked. It worked.
It definitely did.
Yeah, a few people want to smash KK's head in, and like, there you go. she wouldn't pay Kratz a cent to read his load of crock. It's his
Yes.
own confession, more likely. Well, we can get to that too, because I think Christy has a little view on that one. So, but continue, whoever, just keep it rolling, because I didn't read the book. I'm depending on you guys.
Yeah, to me, this is a perfect segue into chapter 2, which is called The Disappearance. Christy, you want to make any comments about that one?
He talks about something I find very strange in this case, and that is that we know from the dispatch calls that Millbilly has that, correct me if I'm wrong, Millbilly, Karen Hallback called and reported Teresa missing at 2:37 p.m. November 3rd.
Yep.
I read this. On November 3rd, 2005, Uyghur informs Kratz about Teresa being last seen at ASY. Quote unquote, guess where Teresa was last seen? So if Karen calls at 2:37 p.m., the call is a couple minutes long. I forget. We're going to say 10-ish minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
More. So she's not off the phone until at least 2:45. So you figure by the time anybody gets to Uyghur, it's at least 3 o'clock. Somehow in Kratz's office before the close of business on the 3rd, talking to Kratz about guess where Teresa was last seen. How did they come to that determination that quickly? How did Uyghur draw that conclusion? And it's the way that Kratz talks about how Uyghur came in. I mean, Uyghur had some kind of look on his face, and Kratz not in the mood for his bullshit, or however he put it in the book, whatever he said. How did that happen? How did Uyghur get to Kratz so quickly with that information? And why? Why was it a big deal that she was at Stephen's house? Who cares? She was off George Dipperer's house. Nobody decided to say anything about that.
Correct. Right. And to me, if I could just put my comment in, that's the start of the tunnel vision right there. That's proof. And in actual fact, the book was worth buying just for that paragraph. I learned something new. And the fact that Uyghur, without any knowledge of what happened, goes into Kratz's office and says, guess where Teresa was last seen? And they're going, what? The Stephen Avery? And you're thinking, wait a sec. Teresa was meant to be there to take photographs. She's been there before. So what's the big deal? Why all of a sudden Stephen Avery's name gets mentioned on November the 3rd? And Christy, I agree 100%. To me, that's a start of some nefarious tunnel vision right there. On November the 3rd, before any evidence is found, There you go. Teresa was a missing person at that time, at that stage. No one found her, RAV4, nothing. And all of a sudden, Stephen Avery's name gets mentioned by none other than Wiegert, who plays a significant role in the investigation. I'm sorry, but that doesn't make any sense. But
I totally agree.
The amazing thing, though, Linda, and Christy will back me up on this, there's no doubt that Ken Kratz overtly hated Stephen Avery and didn't even hide it.
No, he didn't.
And why do you think that was? I mean, do you think it was because of what? I mean, I've never heard anybody say that Ken Kratz hated Stephen, but I've heard people, say that Manitowoc had it in for him.
Well, the thing is, he actually said it, but he said it in a roundabout way. And I'll quote from his book. He goes, he, as referring to Stephen Avery, he was all over the news, supported by innocent project lawyers, a sitting governor, and Wisconsin legislators who even named a new criminal justice reform law after him. Hello?
Dripping with jealousy and hatred.
Correct.
Yep, exactly.
And so this is a prosecutor admitting that in a book. So it was his celebrity status that really ground the gears of Ken Kratz. Okay. He didn't like the fact that Stephen Avery, remember, who was in prison for 18 years, wrongfully convicted. Yes, he had to serve time for running off his cousin off the road, pointing a weapon at her. No one disagrees. But for over 12 years, he was sitting in prison, wrongfully convicted of the attempted rape and attack on Penny Bernstein. So Stephen Avery was coming good. He was doing all the right things. And the right people in power were associating themselves with Stephen. Unfortunately for Ken Kratz, that was intolerable. There's no way that Ken Kratz could tolerate that, because I believe, Christy, I don't know what you think, I believe that Ken Kratz wanted the shining light on him.
He did.
Not on Stephen Avery.
No, this was definitely the Ken Kratz show. This was the Ken Kratz show.
Yes. So to me, the takeaway, the thing that really took it home for me was that he even said, and I quote, "I knew his name attached to a missing person case would mean extra scrutiny for everyone, including me." Oh, so what he's trying to say is, oh, look, I'm taking on the big bad wolf Stephen Avery. That means that people are going to be looking at me for extra attention. Excuse me? What the hell?
Special prosecutor, special district attorney, special.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, for me, Christy and Linda, the takeaway was that he tried to make Stephen Avery look really bad. He didn't like his celebrity status in Wisconsin society, and that worried him a real lot, because all the bigwigs were becoming familiar with Stephen Avery. And remember, he had a $36 million civil lawsuit, and that was going to hurt. That was going to hurt the MTSO. It was going to hurt the county. It was really, really significant.
Yeah, it was going to affect a lot of people in Manitowoc. Jobs, retirements, their names, just a whole bunch of things. It's too bad that they had that much hate. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Yeah, I agree. So to me, I don't know what Christy thinks, but I think Ken Kratz thought he was going to become the Wisconsin White Knight. he was going
Maybe.
he was going to be
Yeah.
the white knight coming on his horse, and he was
Well-
going to get rid of this evil scum.
Yeah, well, they
And
run for governors, mayors. They start at
Yes.
the law level, so you
Yes,
never know.
yes.
Good
And
insight.
to me, that's why I reckon he took it very personally. He took on the role as a father, that he was the father figure of Teresa Halbach, and how dare this evil sexual predator do the things that he did to this poor innocent woman. And he really took it personally. And you can see that on Man One. You can't hide it. He did it. He did it. His emotions changed. His demeanor changed. His voice. It looks like someone was squeezing his testicles. I'm there,
Sounds
what
like-
the hell?
He sounded like it too.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to give you that. He did. He certainly did.
And yeah, to me, that's a worry.
Right.
When you got
right.
when you got a loose cannon like that, who's got power and who's got a mission to destroy somebody, that's
Right.
bad. That's
Right.
really bad.
Right.
In the rest of that chapter, Linda, what Ken Kratz does, he talks about the roles of Wiegert, Fassbender, Lenk, Colburn, and Remacher. The last three, Christy would tell you, should they have actually been at the Avery sandwich site? Christy, you want to tell us?
No, they should not have been anywhere near there. Lincoln Colburn, Lincoln Colburn. I don't know of any. I'm sure Millbilly will correct me. I can't think of a Remacher connection to the old Stephen Avery case. So no, he shouldn't have been there because he was Manitowoc, but I think he might be the least
To worry about.
Yeah, Lincoln Colburn definitely should not have been there. Definitely
Actually, let me correct you, Christy.
Okay,
The person who was least involved was the coroner.
True.
Was the coroner?
Yeah.
Not forget about that.
And who does that? Where did they do that? Ever?
She was just there with the body anyway. They don't really need her.
And who was the first? Who was the first person to get kicked out? The coroner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, that's where the fix came in, Linda. That's when the fix came in. You get rid of the coroner. You make sure she doesn't lay her eyes on the burn pit and does a proper documentation. So therefore, you can do anything you want.
Right. You have free reign.
You've got free reign. You've got
Exactly.
free reign. And I am disgusted, and Christy, I'm sure, will back me up, and even the listeners, to say that a coroner's job is simply to come in and kick the body.
Yeah.
I mean,
talk about disrespect.
Yeah, the coroner had number one power. She was top dog.
But she felt very afraid, you know.
Oh God, yeah. Oh,
and that makes a big difference. Even though she could put him in jail and do what she wanted, I think she was very afraid to do so. That was my intake on that. That I think she was extremely afraid to try to fight them guys.
Yes. And I know this is not really relevant here because we're discussing Ken's book, but now
it's all irrelevant.
Now you can see the connections to old cases like Ricky and other cases involving the coroner, the Manitowoc. Oh my God. It's all sort of the jigsaw pieces are starting to come together now. Right. And the picture that it presents is a horrible one.
It does.
It really is a horrible one. It's a real worry. But Ken Kratz, in the rest of that chapter, he talks about the discovery of the evidence. He talks about the discovery of the RAV4. Talks about Teresa Halbach's charred remains, which are found in the burn pit. And guess what? He blamed the bear, the dog.
The dog, yeah.
Because people asked him, well, how come it took you like 3 days to find these cremains? And he goes, Stephen Avery's vicious dog, Bear. And Christy would...
ate him before.
Christy will tell you there's been phone calls in which the Avery family are laughing their heads off, saying that he's the most gentlest dog that anyone ever knows,
Like,
and he wouldn't even harm a fly. And so that's how come the cremains were not found when they were looking at that area. And this is bizarre because Christy will tell you that dog handler's there.
Yeah.
Dog.
Why can't you call the dog warden? The somebody could have came and gotten that dog. If it was that important, somebody could have gotten the dog. Carla was there. They let Carla there to feed the dog, I believe. Or was it Barb?
Yes,
It was Barb. I think it was Barb.
Yes.
No, it was Carla.
It was Carla. Barb got to go get clothes for Bobby, and Carla got to feed the dog. Why not have Carla take the dog? Hey, we need to search the burn pit. Can you get the dog out of here?
Because they didn't have no idea they were going to put him there yet.
Yes. 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 If
you got to follow their narrative that was not and does not ever fit together. But
yes,
the bones were ever in the burn pit to begin with. They were never there.
No, I believe you.
No.
I don't think so either.
When they decided they had a box of bones, I think we'll blame it on the burn pit and we'll blame the dog for it. They had the dog
had them in their pocket and they were letting them out in their pants as they walked. That's what I think. Like Shawshank Redemption when he was moving that dirt.
Yes,
that's what they were doing with the bones.
Yes,
and no disrespect, but they're that shady. Yes. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay, go ahead.
But the remarkable thing is that Ken Kratz had an excuse for everything. Oh, you didn't find the bones? Oh no, there was a big vicious dog, right? Mm-hmm. So we couldn't check the burn pit, right?
Right.
But we all know. If there were cremains in that burn pit, number one thing that would have happened were photographs.
Right.
There would have been proper
and there's
documentation.
In a normal investigation.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's absolutely nothing normal about anything any of these mother homers did. First of all, you get a job, you're supposed to be accurate with dates, accurate with names.
Whatsoever.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. It just gets me going when they're their jobs are taken too lightly.
And Ken Kratz blames Zellner's experts, right? Oh, they're no good. They don't know what they're going on. And yet these are experts who have got expertise in cremated bodies and in proper crime scene documentation. And one of the experts wrote an article, this huge article, about what you do to examine a crime scene where a body has been cremated. The number one thing you do is you get on your hands and knees using fine brushes and a grid, and you mark everything you find, and you photograph or videotape. Yeah. So my question is, where are the in situ photographs? Christy, have you seen any in situ photographs of bones?
No, Jeff just said the pictures are in the bones are in the pictures. He jokes about that all the time.
Yeah, they're in the pictures, all right. That's for sure. Only the select few that they decided to let you see,
Yes.
It's not good. But in a normal investigation, they would have a grid. You would be down on your hands and knees, and you would be slowly just brushing it,
digging out the hole. There would not have been a skid steer.
No.
Out the
Excuse me, but a bobcat does not do that. That's moving mountains of dirt. You would never do.
No.
Because what if there was whole bones there?
Correct.
Like for say half of her body might have been there. They don't know.
Correct.
And they run it over and destroyed it and did, you know what I mean?
Correct.
And then they're going to say that Stephen did that, because they found
Correct.
him there. So there's many reasons why they don't do that. So
But,
for him to even put his special prosecuting name behind that narrative.
Correct.
Continue. I'm sorry.
And no. And one of the state witnesses goes, well, we didn't photograph, and they wrote emails between each other. Fassbender, I forgot the name of the gentleman. How come he didn't photograph the crime scene, the burn pit? Oh, because it's obviously been disturbed. We don't take photographs of a crime scene that's been disturbed. Otherwise, we would have done all the proper documentation. So notice, the investigators immediately disrupt the crime scene. So there's nothing in situ. So therefore, all we are is guessing of what was there. So all the state does is, hey, look, we've got a box of bones. Yeah, the box of bones, these bones were found in that burn pit. What the hell? What did BB say? BB said, came in a box, left in a box. That's probably exactly what happened. These box of bones were simply given to Dr. Bennett and then Dr. Eisenberg, and none of them actually know where those bones came from. Eisenberg even admitted, well, actually, I never was at the Avery salvage site. I didn't even know where the bones came from. And she was asked, well, what are you relying the information on? Well, what the police told me. So whatever the investigators told Eisenberg, she just accepted it.
Yeah.
But here's the critical thing, right? We get, when they were interrogating Brendan, they said, look, Brendan, come on. The burn pit was the size of a table. The size of a table. Right? How in the hell do you get a bobcat in to dig it all out when the actual burn pit was small? Where have you ever heard of a person who gets cremated, walks away, and decides to spread their bones in a burn barrel and in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and there are bones on the grass? I've never ever seen that. If you cremate a human body, the body stays in situ, right? So it's embarrassing. The state can't even give you one photograph that shows you a cremated body.
Not one.
To me, that tells you the crime scene is made up, right?
Yeah.
So what happens? You look at the excellent work done by Millbilly, who looks at Cuss Road. You've got the events at Cuss Road. You've got proper crime scene documentation occurring at Cuss Road. You've got the whole cavalry down there, everyone. You got ambulance, you got investigators, you got lights, you got a tarp, you got everything, right? And what do you have at Stephen Avery's burn pit? Nothing, a blue tarp.
Right.
And they dig out the burn pit. That's called destruction of evidence.
Exactly, and that's a crime.
Like that.
That is a crime.
Yes.
That is a very large crime.
Yes.
People do a lot of time for that.
Yes.
So let's just mark another on the list of how many years should this people have for this.
Imagine how incriminating it is if you had an in situ photograph of an arm, a leg, a spinal cord poking out of Stephen Avery's burn pit. Saying, there you go. She was burnt. Here, you got nothing. You got a box of bones. Right?
Yeah.
It's like me going to Krispy Kreme and buying a box of donuts, bring them in my house and say, I made them. No, you didn't. I made them. No, you didn't.
Well, I don't, yeah.
You got to warn.
And yet, look at what the investigators photographed. They photographed everything in the Avery salvage yard. Everything. Little toys, little items, glasses, chandeliers, carpet, everything except the important stuff.
Yeah.
How do you work that one out?
Uh-oh. Christy, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. You're filling back up. There you are, sweetie. Now you're on the other side. Oh, we're just now we're sandwiching you. We had to do this to get, so you could just take over for us because you're doing a marvelous job, might I add. Everybody is saying so.
Well, if you want to go on to chapter 3, the victim.
We can.
Yes,
Chrissy,
please continue. I mean, like I said,
chapter 3.
You have the floor.
All right, chapter 3, the victim. My favorite quote in here, I'm going to skip the first two that you put.
Yes.
Ken Kratz quotes one of Teresa's friends. I'm going to read her quote. When Jerry Buting blamed her lifestyle for her murder in his closing argument, I almost jumped up and smacked him. He didn't know how important her Catholic faith was to her. How dare he?
Yeah.
Before I say anything, I have the utmost respect for Teresa and her memory. I am not speaking
Yes.
dead. But with what
Yes.
we have uncovered, Teresa Hallback did not take her Catholic faith seriously.
No.
I baptized Catholic.
Well,
Grew up in a Catholic family. I know what Catholic faith is. Teresa Hallback was not demonstrating strict
No.
Catholic beliefs.
but in her last writings, she was trying to get back with it. She felt the need to get back with God, but she was not a saintly girl like everybody says. She had her faults. She was a young girl
Yes.
doing her thing.
If they were
Yes.
able to parade Stephen's past around, his letters with Lori, the allegations with Marie,
Right.
the whatever happened with Jody the night she
Yep.
was, if they were allowed
Fair
to
game.
use Stephen's past, then Teresa's past should have also been able to be used.
Fair game.
Correct.
And
Correct.
whitewashed the way that she was. The truth, if they had nothing to hide, the truth about who she was should have come out.
Well,
Yes.
I like to add to that is that for sure we don't know enough about Teresa, which is something
Correct.
that I think we're finding out now. But a
Yes.
lot of people are, but nobody really knew about her, and they did hold that back. And I agree with you, Christy. They should have never did that. I
Yes.
like the way you put that.
I have to prove to Chad that I'm wearing pants. Do you see my pants, Chad? Do you see that? I'm wearing pants, Chad.
Chad, take the looking at her pants thing some other place, buddy, like Discord. Okay? My guests do not have to stand up and show their pants because they're allowed to be pantsless here if they'd like to.
I have
Well-
pants on, Chad.
Well,
That's
just
okay, go ahead.
just echoing what Christy said. I've got my pants on, by the way. Is that all right?
Yes. You're welcome.
Just,
I do
just-
too because I have to take the dog out once in a while, so
Yes.
because she's a whiner. But go ahead.
Yes. Just echoing what Christy said. Look, there's no doubt. Chapter 3 is called The Victim. And I'm telling you right now, Ken Kratz was steaming in the way Making a Murderer presented the victim. He said, and I'll quote, it was more about him and less about Teresa Hallback. So he didn't like the way Making a Murderer really emphasized Stephen Avery and his life, because he even said, they presented all these pictures of a young Stephen Avery, all these lovely pictures when he was a child, and, blah, 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 blah. Well, is Ken Kratz insinuating that Stephen Avery was born evil? No, he was a normal kid. He got into trouble. He admitted his trouble. He admitted his fault, and he did the time. He wasn't a choir boy. He's a bit of a scumbag, a bit of a rebel, but he admitted to everything he did wrong, right? But Ken Kratz, oh boy, he made it a mission. He made it a mission in his book to present Stephen as a demon, a really bad, corrupt individual, the whole family, right? And we'll talk about this. It's important because there's no doubt he was listening to all the phone calls, right? Poor Christy, she's listened to how many now?
839.
Oh my! I reckon I've listened to 30, and my brain is fried. Christy's listened to over 800. She's zombified. I don't know how you're doing it, but Ken Kratz made it a mission to listen to all of them, or have someone listen to them and write a report. And we'll talk about that in a second. So what he did in this chapter is to make Teresa Hallback a beautiful, loving person, Christian, Catholic faith, could do no wrong. Okay, that's fair enough. And I agree, Linda, you're a young person. You're free to do as you wish. However, guys, come on. Look at what Teresa was doing. Right? She had an affair with a married man. She was taking nude, explicit, X-rated photographs. Now, I know that you're free. You could do whatever you wish. Everyone makes mistakes or whatever. But guys, that puts you in danger, because if the wrong people want to use your services, you may run into the wrong person, right? Now, we've seen those photographs. Remember what what those naked pictures at the park, right? Lord knows what the hell was happening back then. And if Teresa encountered the wrong individual, who knows what may have happened. But personally, I believe, yes, as a prosecutor, you put the victim in the best light. But because they didn't do proper victimology, I believe that was a big mistake, Linda.
I do too.
Right? Because
Totally.
instead of looking at the people that were closest to Teresa, what did they do? They looked at the person who was the furthest away from Teresa, Stephen Avery. Stephen Avery used Teresa to take photographs of his cars,
Right.
not of his naked body, but
Exactly.
of the cars. That's what she was employed to do. But the MTSO, instead of looking within, who are the closest people to Teresa, decided, no, we're going to look at the last person who saw her alive. So they worked, if you look at an onion, they looked at the outside, not the inner layers. And as a consequence, all the potential suspects, and there's a long list of them.
Yeah.
Christy, did they look at anyone?
No.
Okay. I guess that tells it for her.
It's Lily. Lily's sending me messages, and I can see my notifications, and it's cracking me up. I'm sorry.
Okay, Lily, that's enough. We're doing a live here. Please, we are professionals. Can you not tell? Do that fucking some other time. No.
It was a big mistake.
Yeah.
It was a big mistake. And you could tell, as what Christy said, the moment Buting decides to say, hey, look, maybe we should have looked into her past, Ken Kratz wants to jump up and bop him on the nose. So I believe by cocooning the victim and putting the victim in cotton wool, that was wrong. I'm sorry. I have highest respect. This is a terrible crime that took place. But you gave free passes to potential suspects. They weren't even looked at, right? You got to court. Right. You got to court, and Buting's going to Ryan Hilliger's. You mean you weren't even regarded as a suspect? You weren't even questioned separately to your roommate? Nope.
Right. Yeah,
what the hell?
They didn't do that right. That's for sure. I mean, I totally agree. They didn't do a victimology for sure. They didn't look at the closest people, because it just happened that she happened to be working, doing something at Stevens, and then bam, they find this. What a coincidence. Correct. And it's downhill for Stevens since then. Correct. And what we think, or what Ken Kratz thinks, is it's uphill for him.
Correct.
Let's get back onto some of his narcissism.
Yeah, and that echoes with what we get said. Oh, guess where she was? What the hell? And so the name Stephen Avery was drawn out of a hat early on, and it never left.
Right.
It never left. So now all fingers pointed to one suspect, Stephen, right? And what do they do in court? Well, why did you want us to look at anybody else when Teresa Horbach was last seen by Stephen Avery? Bang, there goes your case. We don't look at anybody else. Why should we? And that explains why everyone from Calumet, MTSO, FBI were all down there. One spot, bang, right? And they opened up all the cars, all 3,000 vehicles. They destroyed all of them because they were looking for a body. What, they couldn't bring the dogs to check the cars first, right? So by damaging the cars, they actually hurt their business, right? Because if you pop the hoods, open the trunks, you're damaging them. No one's going to buy them anymore. Crazy.
If I can interrupt you for a second, they even use the jaws of life
Yes.
on some of them cars. So
Yes.
I don't really know of any when they're looking for a missing person that they wouldn't send in dogs or people to check individually in them cars before ripping them open. There are certain, if there's a dead body,
Yes.
it would have an odor.
Oh God, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes.
So okay, I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like you said, the jaws of life, the crushed cars, they cut them open. The crushed cars. They opened up the crushed car. There is video showing them opening up the crushed cars. And that makes a very important point. Think about it. If Stephen Avery crushed the RAV4, right? What do you think the people on the salvage yard would have done? They would have gone, hey, look at that crushed car. Oh my God, it's blue. No, wait a minute, green or blue-green. Let's open it up. So they would have discovered her vehicle, right? One way or another. They would have discovered it. So what on earth would Stephen Avery do by placing the victim's car on the salvage yard with his blood? We'll talk about this in a second. With his blood, her blood, in broad daylight. So even if he crushed the car, they would have opened it up. They would have probably found the VIN number. They would have found something and said, uh-oh, this car belongs to the victim. So why would you keep it on your property, crushed or otherwise? Honestly, it makes no sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Not at all. Not at all. So let me see. And here they talk about the victim. That's where he's like laying it out, right? How about perfect life she had, and it was just Stephen was just this monster who was stalking her and had it out for her because of his years in prison. Is that the type of thing, like he kind of said before, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other important thing, and Christy will back me up, the infamous towel incidents.
Right.
And you see, and we'll talk about that after, he used that as the basis of luring Teresa back to the salvage yard. The fact that she obviously knocked on his door and he appeared in a white towel, that was it. That was the start of the luring to her back to the salvage yard. Is Lily being cheeky?
Yeah. Yeah, I think she's being a little cheeky. Pay attention now, Missy. You got the most knowledge of the words.
So keep that in mind, guys, and the listeners, the towel incidents, because that comes up several times.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
He brings that up and just about every little tiny thing he can about Stephen, but then, like you said, paints a picture of, Teresa as not being a vulnerable number one, which she was. She was just a girl who was, doing her job, and Stephen is this evil person in prison. So, I don't think that he did enough of his. No, he didn't do anything. Let's put it that way. He just didn't. He didn't.
Correct. And and Linda, if you want to talk about chapter 4.
Yeah. I'm just going to say yes. Let's get on to that.
Christy, you wanna start off this?
This one kind of looks long and in detailed here. This is where we get to really get into the mind of what he thinks of Stephen. Correct.
Well, I also want to point out that on the version of the book online that the website that Dr. Silkman and I read it from, it tells you how many minutes it takes to read each chapter. This chapter takes the longest.
Yes.
He spent the most time ripping. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Actually, it's the blood. I'm sorry. It's the blood one that's the longest, but still. Okay. So the chapter about Stephen is the second longest chapter to read. He spends most of his time talking about Stephen, and yeah, this was a hard chapter to only pick a couple things to talk about. Do you want to go first, or what do you want to do?
Well, we can summarize it very easy, right? We can either spend an hour on it or we can sum it up very quickly.
Well, yeah, I'll address one thing here. One of
Beautiful.
his quotes is, I have listened to hundreds of hours of Avery phone calls and reviewed written reports of hundreds more hours I didn't have time to hear personally. Well, Charles Darwin, I also listened to those hundreds of hours.
Charles. And who's Charles Darwin?
I'm told that Charles Darwin is actually Ken Kratz, so I'm going to address him as Charles Darwin since he wants to address us as Charles Darwin. Well, Charles Darwin, I listened to those same phone calls you did, and I heard something completely different. I heard an innocent man who did not do this, and you destroyed their family. You destroyed that family. You ripped it apart, and you should pay for that one way or the other.
Yeah, I completely agree. And with chapter 4, basically what he does, and you're right, Christy, he spends a lot of time basically taking Stephen Avery apart. And he spends a lot of time detailing all the crimes that Stephen Avery committed, right? He talks about his violence, perpetuation of violence against women, the fact that Stephen Avery was a pervert, was involved in robbery, and he then talks about the infamous cat burning incident. You know,
that damn
of course he's going to be a murderer because he tortures animals. So, you know, a lot of people that end up murdering others torture their pets or pets. Then he mentioned the Sandra Morris incident. And what's remarkable is that he goes into a lot of detail, right? And Christy will back me up. He even puts up pictures of the letters that he wrote to Laurie, and he even underlined key words, right? So he's putting a lot of information about Stephen's bad character, right? So all along, what he's doing is he's dressing down Stephen, making him look as the perfect candidate to murder Teresa Horbach, right? So so in terms of like making a murderer, Christy, that's what he's doing. That's the picture that he's portraying, so that the reader of his book says, oh yeah, no doubt, Stephen's guilty. He did all of this. Look at his past, right? But he then talks about the assault on Jody, right? Jody was Stephen's fiancée at the time. He even talks about rape allegations as well, right? And he even mentions that there was inappropriate conduct between the Avery family members. And, you know, that's pretty hard when you hear that, especially in court, right? Because a lot of those allegations were aired out, and that's pretty hard. But Christy made it clear. Kratz was listening into all the phone calls, right? And what Kratz was doing was building up a profile about Stephen and his family. And so what he's trying to do is to paint a real nasty picture of Stephen and his family, right? And he made the comment, I quote, Jody feels lucky to have gotten out of her relationship with Avery alive, right? And
the phone calls.
Yes?
Didn't sound that way from the phone call. Sounded like she was very happy to be with Stephen. I didn't hear her fearing for her life at any point in time. And
correct.
Any phone calls between her and Stephen. Yes,
correct.
He was trolling. Yes, he mentally berated her a little bit. He's as you said, he's not a great guy.
No, he's not.
Not in any way, shape, or form scared of that man.
No. But again, that doesn't really fit the persona that Ken Kratz is trying to build up of Stephen, right? So anything, it's pretty obvious from the phone calls, Christy, and you analyze them. He really cared for Jody. He was very, worried for Jody.
As toxic as that relationship was, they loved each other. They absolutely
Yeah.
loved each other.
Yes, and he even said many, many times, all I want to do is marry Jody and leave Wisconsin.
Yep.
Right? Get out. Get the hell out of there. Marry her. And of course, he had the civil lawsuit that was happening. So he would have come across a lot of money. They would have left. They would have got married. And that would have been the end of it. But of course, it didn't pan out that way. It was a disaster. And so what does Ken Kratz do? Well, Jody now goes on the Nancy Grace show and says, yeah, he's a killer. He did it. So Jody goes from defending him to now that Stephen Avery, no problems, he's the killer. So now you've got even his own fiance going against Stephen. So it all looks really bad. And what does Jody say? I quote, Jody believes that Teresa was just unlucky enough to have been standing there when Stephen decided to collect on his debt. What the hell?
Kratz.
Jody never
Christy.
said anything about that in any of her phone calls. Jody says that she believes his innocence, that
She doesn't sound like she sounds like the only problem she's having is that she can't get her things done and help Stephen at the same time with the family on her. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like she's having issues with the family, and she's trying to, and it became where she was like not doing good for herself. Why she turned on him 2 years later, I have no idea. Maybe money or something. I don't know. But it did to
Yes.
me sound like through all the phone calls, and I'm like about 250 behind. But
Phone calls.
well, maybe 500, yes, since the
Yeah.
new one's been coming. But I was all the way through at the end with Christy before the new ones came. So in all of them, there was love. There was love between them guys. So that was, you
Yeah.
know,
as toxic as it was, they loved
right.
each
Right.
But I
They
mean,
did.
But guys, really, what do people expect? He's in prison again.
Yeah.
He was in prison for 18 years. He was
Yeah.
wrongfully convicted. He had 2 years of freedom. What happens? He's now pinned with a murder, rape, murder, dismemberment, cremation. How would you feel? Or lovey-dovey? Or would you be worried? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
he was convicted twice.
Right.
Twice.
He's been doing, I mean, his whole life is gone, and it's both wrongful things. You know, to me, I
Yes.
always say 1 day in prison when you're not supposed to be there, 1 hour is too long. But I can't imagine 36 years of my life
No.
being gone.
No.
That's heartbreaking to me.
Nothing-
Utterly heartbreaking.
Nothing can be done to fix that.
Nothing.
No.
There's not an amount of money in this
No.
world that could ever give him back his life as a father,
No.
his life as a maybe starting a
Lord-
new family, his life with his parents,
No.
the life of growing and being, you know, and not, you know, what Ken Kratz has done, and all the
Yes.
rest of the players are just, it's crazy.
Well,
I don't want to go off on a tangent.
No,
And I will.
no, that's all relevant because Ken Kratz made it a personal mission to destroy him and his family.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was a personal mission to take apart that family. And what do we have O'Kelly in that email he wrote
Yeah.
about this is one branch of the family that needs to be cut down? And they read that email in front of Dolores and other family members. How do you think they felt? Saying, wait a minute.
Oh my God, when they were doing that and I was sitting there watching that, I was like, for the first time, I was like, are you kidding me? You really think that? And you're saying that in a court in front of all these people?
Correct.
And that was before I knew he was just a lie detector guy
Yes.
who decided to get himself a career in psychology, criminal investigation, and psychic abilities. I don't know.
Correct. But how would you feel as a mother knowing that that's a person who was meant to be representing your son.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
going, well, let's
Yeah.
get rid of this family once and for all. They're criminals.
Exactly.
And you're going,
Right.
what the hell? So, I mean,
Terrible.
to me, you can summarize chapter 3, the victim, as presenting a really rosy picture of Teresa Halbach, beautiful, white, fluffy, cut down in the prime of her life. And chapter 4, the perpetrator, evil, nasty, dark, sexual predator, the worst person on the planet.
Right.
So
Right.
you've got the good versus evil established. And, you know, the amazing thing is it failed. His book failed, and even mentions that. So
Yeah.
despite Ken Kratz trying to make Stephen Avery look as evil and as bad as possible, people didn't buy it.
Right.
They saw
Right.
through it. They saw through what he was trying to do.
Yeah. But yeah, he's so far I'm just thinking he's got delusions in his mind, or he's just trying to set the stage again at the beginning of the book to see, you know, like he did set the stage at the beginning of the trial. You know, he's very
Yes.
calculated. He's very calculated. Even
Yes.
in a pile of crap writing illustration pamphlet that most people wouldn't use that for the bottom of their bird cage, which I've read that and thought that was cute.
Yes.
You know, I mean, he's calculated even in writing his book, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Yes. He honestly thought it was going to be easy. He thought it was going to be easy. Everyone was going to see it as this evil monster, predator, taking on this young girl, but it didn't turn out that way. And he was shocked. He couldn't understand why people portrayed Ken Kratz as the evil monster in the series and also from his book. And, you know, it really, Linda, really did backfire on him. And he couldn't understand it. It affected his life as well. It was karma. In a way, it was karma.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, you know, let's move right on down here to.
You guys, we're going to be here for like 8 more hours. Right?
No, we're not. I'm just going to ask you now. Well, I got you. Let's break this into 2. You might even have to break it into 3. Because, see, I like to keep them short so people will watch.
Yes, that's
they
good
don't.
point.
They lose. So, I mean, we could just do a little, hey, what do you know, kind of action with the chat for a few minutes and let you go or whatever you guys feel. But I would love to continue and keep, because you've done a very good, both of you taken a lot of time to do this. And I think it's important that people understand where this guy's coming from and what he has to say about everybody and everything going on. So,
and it saves them from having to read it. Because not everybody can hear.
Yep, that's what it does. That's exactly what it does.
I'm not sure who it was. I've talked to so many people these last few weeks, but I've talked to somebody recently who has the book, who has looked at the book and read certain parts, but has never read it cover to cover, just cannot start to finish.
Oh, yeah, I can't. I'm just like, to me, that's like reading something O'Halley wrote. I just, I'd rather.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I just can't do it. But so if you, since we're at the end of the first 3 chapters, right? 2 chapters, 3. Yep, 3.
No,
we've done
4.
Got
ways to
we've
go.
done
Even
4
though it's a very
chapters.
small book.
Yes.
It's really not.
Yes.
But it's a lot to talk about. I really feel it's a lot.
We can dispute every word he writes. Every word he writes.
Look, that's correct. That's correct. Even though I wrote this précis, it could have been 10 times longer.
Yeah.
Everything he wrote,
damn, we're moving.
Except 1 or 2 sentences, you could dispute, you can argue. And really, Linda, I don't know how you want to proceed from here, but chapter 5, 6, 7, 8.
I say there's 15 chapters. I say we do chapter 5 really quick. We can do 3 parts, 5 chapters in each part.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to do that?
Sure. So let's just continue on. Sorry, guys, for the, little bit of backstage talk, but
yes, because
we'll continue.
what Christy said, we could be here for 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I think for our sake of our listeners, we want to do a good job,
Yeah.
but we don't want to be too long.
Right.
Well, it just so happens for me. Oh, sorry, Christy. Go.
This is your part.
Ronald.
I'm going to mute while you do this, Dr. Stuckman, because this is your press, your expertise. And let's just hear what you got to say. And then if Christy wants to bounce in, she can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Absolutely.
This is Silkman's favorite.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, my initial interest in this case was the forensics. And the reason why is because it's all about DNA and blood. And that's where I spent my professional life in. I was a molecular biologist for about 30 years and a university educator. So I know a lot about DNA. And so that interested me in this case. What Ken Kratz does, he breaks down all the evidence. So he breaks it down looking at all the forensic evidence that was found, right? There's no doubt the most important piece of forensic evidence is the RAV4. The RAV4 was found on Saturday, November the 5th. It was found by actually Teresa's distant cousin by the name of Pam Sturm. We call her Pam of God, and her daughter, Nicole. They found the RAV4. And basically, once the forensics was done, it was discovered that the Toyota RAV4 inside had 6 droplets of blood belonging to Stephen Avery, and it also had blood belonging to Teresa Halbach. Now, I'm saying the victim, meaning Teresa Halbach, because some people dispute that Teresa Halbach's alive, and that's cool. I've got no problems with that. But I'm just saying that when the forensics were done, there was blood matching Teresa Halbach as DNA, and the DNA profile of the blood at the front of the RAV belonged to Stephen Avery. So there are 2 DNA profiles in the RAV4. Also, there's saliva that was found in a cherry Pepsi can. That belongs to Teresa Halbach as well. They used a pap smear to compare the DNA profiles here allegedly belonging to Teresa Halbach, right? So you've got the pap smear is used as the reference point, right? Because Teresa Halbach, there's no body, right? So you can't extract DNA from a body. There's no body. There's only bones. So that's why they use the pap smear. Okay? So there's one problem. The state is saying, well, Stephen Avery left his blood because he had a cut on his right finger, right? Which is true. But they can't actually prove that that finger was bleeding on October the 31st. They're speculating that it was, right? So the Toyota RAV4 is one of the most important pieces of crime scene. Now, what Kratz then goes into, and I believe this was a big mistake by the defense, was the blood planting scenario, right? So I know Stephen Avery was saying, hey, look, they planted my blood, they planted my blood. But the defense made a mistake by saying it had to come from the blood vial, right? So there was a blood vial, 1996. And so the defense is saying, look, it had to have come from that blood vial, nowhere else. Well, we now know that there was blood potentially in multiple places that the state could have used in the planting. Furthermore, all Cherie Cohen, who did all the swabbing, all she had to do was swap swabs, and you wouldn't know, right? So it's actually very easy to set up, right? So the Toyota RAV, so the Toyota RAV4 is your most important crime scene, right? But because the defense went with the blood in the vial, what do? The defense tested it for EDTA, right? The Dr. LeBeau from the FBI said, hey, I found no EDTA, hence this blood can't be from the blood vial. Thank you very much. Stephen Avery is guilty, Except, of course, there's a lot of problems with the EDTA testing, right? There are many factors. And so just to read a quote, and this was bad. This was very bad. Although the defense never came out and accused either Lenk or Colburn of actually killing Teresa Halbach, that inference was crystal clear in their presentation. Now, Christy, you back me up on this. This was bad because Ken Kratz made a big song and dance by saying, oh, so you want to accuse Lenk and Colburn of planting, well, then you have to believe that they killed Teresa Halbach. That was his logic, right? Remember when Christy, when he said, your cops who look after you, are you accusing them of A, planting, B, stalking, killing, cremating, culling up Teresa Halbach? So in other words, if you accept one thing, you've got to accept the whole lot. And the defense is saying, no, we never said that. However, I believe it damaged their case. Because you could imagine the jury thinking, hey, wait a minute, are you now trying to insinuate that the police killed Teresa Halbach? No, I don't believe that they did.
No.
Me personally, I believe they came across her cremains or body and said, aha, we can utilize this to frame Stephen Avery, and it's a piece of cake to do.
Now,
They just brought everything back to the salvage yard when they're all at Crivets, so no one was there. All they had to do was swap barrels, change the number, say, oh, we found this here, this there, done. You're done like a dinner.
Yeah, I'd like to add that, you know, when Mark Wiegert goes, well, they had 5 days to clean it up. Well,
correct.
They had 5 days to plant too, didn't they?
Correct.
I mean, you know, kind of, yeah. Correct. So with the blood clearly is very important. And the reason why it's important, and I quote, Avery's blood, that DNA that helped establish his innocence in 2003 was now solid, incontrovertible evidence of his guilt. And the penny dropped, right? That's exactly what a planter would do. Because a planter would know, hey, if I put his blood, his DNA in the car, boom, it's going to look damaging, right? So that's what a planter would do. Put something of Stephen in the vehicle. Right.
And what's the clue that they had no Teresa Halbach's body? There's none of her body parts anywhere on the salvage yard except bones.
Well,
so if law enforcement found her, if the investigators found her, she was cremated, she was burnt, or they burnt her. Whatever was left, they burnt her. So notice, this is important because one of the listeners said it. Hey, why didn't they plant her hair? Because they didn't have her hair. She was burnt. So the planters could only use what they had. What did they have? They had burnt electronics and they had burnt cremains. So therefore, that's the only thing they could use to transplant back onto the salvage yard. Otherwise, they would have put her hair in his trailer. Because what did Brendan say? Oh, we cut off her hair, and Stephen put it in his locker, in his bedroom locker. Was there any hair? No hair, because the victim that they found, she was dead. She was gone. She was cremated. So they could only use what they could to put back on the property, and that makes perfect sense, right? They didn't have her blood. So they couldn't put blood in the trailer, right? The only blood was in the RAV4, right? Eventually was in the RAV4. Otherwise, you can bet they would have put hair, skin, anything in that trailer and in the garage. Do you find anything? Nope. What does Mark Wiggett say? Well, these two geniuses, they cleaned everything up, right? And yet, these same two geniuses leave a RAV4 belonging to the victim in plain sight. Yes, it was disguised a little bit with his blood and her blood in the car. So in other words, a Boy Scout will take 10 minutes to work out, whose blood does this belong to? Oh my God, it belongs to Stephen Avery. Come on, guys. They're either forensic geniuses or they're dumbasses, right? And I don't think Stephen Avery or Brendan Dassey's got a PhD in forensic molecular biology, right? You know how difficult it is to clean micro spray of blood if you shoot someone in the head? You can't even see it. And yet when they did luminol, did they find anything? No. They swabbed the garage, right? The only DNA they found was Stephen Avery's near one of the cars. So that proves to me that they never cleaned up the garage, right? It was still dirty because they found Stephen Avery's DNA on there. Did they clean up the trailer? No, they can't have. Why? Because the handcuffs had Stephen Avery's DNA and another person's DNA on it, right? What does Brendan Dassey say? We handcuffed her to the bed. She was handcuffed to the bed. Well, excuse me, you're going to lose skin. You're going to lose blood. There was nothing. So therefore, Ken Kratz, the defense, the state must be going, oh my God, we've got a sterile crime scene here, guys. What are we going to do? So that's why you find everything on the outside. You find the RAV4. You find the plates. You find the key, right? We'll talk about the key maybe in another podcast. You find the key. You find item FL, the bullet. What does Fassbender say to Cohane? Try to put her in his garage or house. That's exactly what happened. The key in his house. Item FL in the garage. Boom. Thank you very much. Thank you, linesman. Thank you, boys. You're gone to prison. Simple. Very, very simple. And yet, what did Ken Kratz expect? 40 million people are just going to say, oh, yes, Mr. Kratz, we believe everything you told us. Of course not. Of course not. So to me, the blood is very important. You can dispute the EDTA results quite easily. And what I did a presentation on that, where I looked at the blood planting scenario and also EDTA testing. And oh my God, all you need is 2 minutes to plant that blood with a dropper. Done.
Yeah.
Easy.
And I'll put the link for that in the description after the show so you guys can go and check that video out that Dr. Suckman's talking about.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So to me, that's very important. That's your crime scene right there, the blood. So what do all guilters say? You can talk about anything you want. Guilters will come back and say, well, how did Stephen Avery's blood get in that car? That's it. They'll walk away. And the answer is very easily. Anyone could do it, right? And don't forget, we have Stephen Avery's Grand Am in the crime lab with his blood in it, right? And who swabs the Grand Am? Who swabs the Toyota RAV4? Who handles all the swabs? Who does all the PCRs? One person.
Sherry.
Your girlfriend.
No, she's not my girlfriend anymore.
She's like,
She's not my girlfriend
she's
anymore.
a bad aqua in that day, I'll tell you what.
My Lord.
Remember that stuff?
Yeah.
Continue.
So can you argue against the blood? Yes, you can. Right? And look, let's face it, guys. Stephen Avery could have easily said, he could have made up a story. He could have said, look, Teresa tried to start her RAV4, her car, when she was trying to go. It didn't work. So I said, look, I know about cars. Let me check your car. I went in the car, looked around, tried to start it. oh, I'm sorry, but I was bleeding at the time. I didn't realize. I went underneath her hood to check out to make sure the battery was connected, blah, blah, blah. Closed the car. She started and off she went. But Stephen Avery never gives an explanation. He only gives a look of shock and horror saying, how in the hell did my blood get there? Right? How did his blood, her blood, and how did his blood get there? They were lying to him, right? They even said to Stephen on November 9th in that interrogation, what's her blood doing in your house? And he says, what? Her blood?
And they never found her blood in his house.
No, they
lied.
didn't. No, they didn't.
Yep, no.
They lied.
Yep. So Linda,
Just another
yeah.
lie.
Yeah. So yes, they were permitted to lie to him. So I mean, we've talked about the RAV4 for hours and hours and hours, the colors and things like that. But I think we should really focus on the book. And you know, Ken Kratz and Christy will back me up, made it a real big deal. Well, we have the victim's car there, and we've got Stephen Avery's blood in there. And also the hood latch, the sweat from the sweat. And Christy, you want to make a comment about the sweat and the phone calls?
He got that from the phone calls. Stephen and Debbie Klemper talking, and Stephen talks about how sweaty he gets during sex. And
Yeah, I know.
I'm just, oh my God, this is where he got this from. He's taken Stephen's own words and using them.
Yeah, they did.
Which proved, and that was a brilliant pickup by Christie, which proved, and even his book proved that Kratz was building up a profile. He used everything against Stephen. And what would he do if he wanted anything? He would have just simply said, okay, here's a phone call to prove it. He's a sweaty man. And what does he say in his opening statement? Sweat. Stephen Avery was sweating. Brendan saw his sweating uncle. And you're thinking, bloody hell, what the hell's going on here? And now, through the good work of Christie, there you go, bang. He used it. He
says the word sweat so many times. He's obsessed with it. I've never heard somebody use the word sweat so many times in one sentence.
Right.
He was, I think he was just trying to pump that into people's heads so he could come up with the sweat DNA thing, you know?
Yes. And if I could just comment on what Millbilly just said, one thing you won't find in Ken Kratz's book is the blood found at the quarry, CX, but most importantly, the most incriminating piece of forensic evidence that was forgotten about, A23. So now wait for it. There's a third genetic profile on that RAV4, a third one. So on the door handle that you have to open up at the back of the RAV4, there was blood. There was a fingerprint and blood, right? None of which belonged to Brendan or Stephen. Right. Cherie Cohane only got a partial profile of A23. And do you think she re-extracted the DNA to run it through CODIS? No.
No. None of the Averys, none of the she didn't match any of them. Who is this stranger?
But oh my Lord. So, you know, when you tell the guilters that, they go, oh, you mean there was a third genetic profile on the RAV4? Yes, there was. Was it investigated? No, it wasn't. Because what it did is it pointed away to Stephen. It pointed away from Stephen. Now think about it, right? Their whole premise is Stephen and Brendan killed Teresa Horbach and threw her body in the back of the RAV. To do that, you need to open the back door, right? Yeah, you need to open the back door. What do they find? They find blood and a fingerprint on the door handle that you have to open to put a body in the back of the RAV.
It wasn't important.
But, belongs to somebody else.
It belongs to somebody else. They only got a partial profile. They didn't even make a comment whether it was male or female. But clearly the alleles that they developed were not Stephen's or Brendan's, right? Now, did any law enforcement officer say, oh, yes, I was bleeding at the time, it probably belonged to me? You know, no, everyone said no one touched the RAV. No one touched the RAV. So therefore, think about this. You've got someone bleeding who opened the back door of the RAV and put a fingerprint on it. And it's not Stephen or Brendan. What did the investigators do? Deep six it. No one wants to talk about it. Ken Kratz doesn't want to talk about it, but thankfully Zona is well aware of CX and A23. She knows that they're important. There you go.
Oh, Linda fell out. Got internet.
Well, I reckon that's a good natural break there.
I think so. I didn't realize it was gonna. I didn't think we'd want to spend this much time here, but we did.
No, but I mean,
part two.
Yeah, but to me, I think it's important to take apart his book and just to show his approach and the fact that you can argue everything he said, right? He tried to present it as though it was a fate incomplete, that everything was easy, but it's not. It's a disaster. Linda, would you reckon we call a natural break here and maybe answer a few questions? Or
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. My internet is just seems to be getting worse and worse here. I don't know. I do have somebody come look at it, so I apologize to everybody. Thank you for so much for continuing to just go on and not
no problem.
Interrupt. I really appreciate you guys being so professional on my low budget, no profession show.
No. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, I'm honored. I love it, and I'm glad we're going to have a couple more here. So let's see what people are saying. Did you come across anything in the chat there? Since you're a mod now, Chrissy, you can tell me about these things. Anybody come up with?
No, I mean everything. I put a link for the summaries for the call sheets up for the call summary sheets up there.
Great.
No, I mean everybody's been great. They've been following along. It's been wonderful. Thank you for having us on, and I look forward to finishing it
Thank
up.
you.
Yeah, I do too. Does anybody have? Oh, there, Wendra. Hi. I never see anybody. There's a lot of people on here I haven't seen, and I really appreciate it. Everybody being here, you have no idea. But does anybody have anything they really want to talk about? The last, things we've just discussed, or just make it the way it is, and we'll kind of do it again. I don't know. Whenever you guys want to do it, we can make a date.
I can do, tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm busy. That's it.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, then we'll just do
time.
it, and you guys can look forward to it.
Another time.
There you
But
go.
I just wanted to say that to me personally, it was a big mistake for the defense to point their fingers at one source of blood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because that way, what Ken Kratz does beautifully is he'll take apart an argument.
Right.
And make you look silly. Oh, how in the hell could they use that? Lenk wasn't involved. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. All they had to say was a blood source was used and not point anywhere, right? Because Buting got hyper excited when he saw the hole in the blood vial. He goes, oh, they've taken blood out of here. Oh, there, we got it. No. If you have your blood taken, it's normal. The hole in the vial is normal, right? That's how the blood gets in the vial in the first place. So, but not to say that blood wasn't used. I believe they made a mistake by overemphasizing the importance, right? And I believe the defense made a big mistake by naming Lenk and Colburn, because Kratz later on in his book, oh my God, does he go to town?
Colburn, poor Lenk, poor.
Correct.
Poor
Who's going to
Colburn.
compensate them? Who's going to do?
Well, like I said, I do not agree with any of the, bodily harm and threats and bomb, whatever. That is totally out over the top. You should not do that. write him a letter, tell him that you think he's a bad policeman, whatever the case might be, that's fine.
Correct.
But I think they kind of, like I've said many times, they've had the opportunity to clear their names. They chose not to. So
Correct.
what we perceive of them is only what they are allowing us to.
Yes. And that's why Ken Kratz earlier on in his book says,
right,
ma'am, evil. They use selective editing, blah, blah, blah. And so they made the defense look really good, and they made the prosecuting team look really bad.
Dr. Silver, Millbilly has a question for us. He wants to know, did either of you learn anything from reading this book? No. Fucking thing other than Ken.
They already said they had their psych, appointments. They've been on the Xanax or whatever might make them, we all got our things.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but
sorry, Linda, I was expecting to learn about real tidbits, information that only Kratz knew, information about that wasn't presented in MAM, that was unique, that was going to turn the corner, convince me of the boy's guilt. It did the opposite. It did the absolute opposite. It made me dig my heels in deeper to say, Ken Kratz, you're full of shit. So's your book. And that's sad because I gave it the best chance. I really read it with an open view and not being judgmental. But honestly, I've never read a book where I wanted to tear my eyes out. That's bad. Normally you give a book, give it the benefit of the doubt, but it was so bad. It was so one-sided and so anti-Stephen Avery. He did what he reckons MAM did to him. He did it in the book.
Right. I'm hearing you guys talk about the book, hearing the phone calls, knowing everything I've read for the last 2 years, and everything else. It just really seems that he just had a plan, that their evidence fits their plan, so they can't really rebuttal with it, and it's just too convenient. Too many things. But we will get the answers to the next few chapters, and we'll let you know. It won't be too long, guys. I'll get something out here. We'll talk. We'll DM, whatever. You guys have anything else you'd like to
stay tuned?
Yeah, all I want to say is thank you very much, Linda, and for inviting us. To me, it's a real pleasure. To me, it's like me cleaning out my soul. You have to let it out. You can't keep this in because it drives you mad. You got to talk to someone about it. I'm talking about Ken Kratz's book.
It's
Yes, so I'm very glad that you have given us this opportunity, and I'll love to continue later on.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank all the other great YouTubers, Andrew Whitehead, Millbilly, Linda Kay, obviously you, Paul Capaldi, Eric Hosey, all the great work that the Foul Play team on with is doing. I think it's all great. And I love that we're all starting to come together and work together. And I think this is awesome. And
sure is.
On it. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. It's been fun. I tried to respond to as many comments as I could. We lost Linda again, it looks like. I'm sure she'll come back in a second. But I mean, thank you, everyone. And please check out everybody's channels. I put the link to Discord in if anybody wants to come join us on Discord and talk.
Fantastic.
Shall we wait for Linda for a minute?
Yeah, I reckon we should. For sure. Yeah, because there's 16 chapters altogether. And then he starts honing into and going into Kathleen's illness. So, yeah, there's no way we could have done this podcast in one sitting. Just impossible.
We were waiting We were just waiting for you, Linda. We were saying goodbye. We just wanted to wait for you.
I'm so sorry. I can't do anything till the guy comes and switches the stuff up. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry.
No,
Thank you,
no
guys.
problem.
It'll be okay.
Really, thank you. It's been my pleasure. I mean, I feel very honored. I can't wait for our next talk. Thank you so much, everybody who has joined my little crazy and low budget channel here. I love it, and I love you guys. And thank you so much. Did you want something to say? Have something to say, Chrissy?
I said hit the like button and subscribe.
Oh,
You bet.
that's right. And cheers, guys. See you on the flip flop.
Bye-bye.
Take care.